House of LEASE, everyone. I first want to ask you, have you ever seen a book that has pages like this? Or this? That you gotta flip topsy-turvy in order to be able to read what it says. Blank pages and random poetry with fucked up letters about a mom who tried to kill her son. Or pages that have a reflection down the middle and a metaphorical/literal hole through the pages. This, ladies and gentlemen, House of LEASE, a book that was published in the year 2000. I want to tell you something important about the book. I'm almost certain that the reason the book is so indistinguishable is so you can figure it out from more than one angle. Where do I even begin? Probably with the plot. Let's start with the beginning. Two main parts to the story, the plot. The Novitzin record, and you have the footnotes of Johnny Truant. Now, the Novitzin record is the story of an old guy, photographer, and he moves into a house with his wife, Karen, and his 2 kids. Weird shit starts to happen. When they go to a wedding, come back, out of nowhere, there's a closet in their wall. I mean, how do you explain that? Why would a construction guy break into your house just to build you a place for your gay son to stay? That's the first freaky thing about the house. And the reason it's freaky is because there is no why. You can't understand that. And also, what are you gonna do? Call the cops? Hello, cocksucker police department, here to help you out. Police? Yeah, some crackhead broke into my house and built a closet. The fuck? Do we have a law for that? Is he implying that he's gay? I'll support him, it's okay. No, Jerry, do we have a law for that? No, I know we have destruction of private property. What about creation of private property? Hello? Nah, ma'am, I think we gotta create a law for that first. So that's the first incident. Second incident is that apparently there is a hallway that just pops out of nowhere. They call it the 5.5-minute hallway. And this may be out of order, but he starts to notice shit's kind of shifting. All you know is that something is wrong, and you don't know what it is, and you don't know if you should be scared, but something's wrong. He gets a friend, a man named Reston, and they measure the inside, and then they measure the outside, and they realize that it's actually bigger than the outside. It's bigger by... shit. 1/4 inch bigger on the inside than on the outside. And they find a hallway, 5.5-minute hallway, and he's the guy, the photographer, the guy who moved in with his wife and kids, and he goes into the 5.5-minute hallway. And I'm going to tell you why it's called the 5.5-minute hallway. Because he's stuck in there for 5.5 minutes. He hears the Minotaur. It's the only place that echoes. It's the only place where he can't see clearly. And it's the only place that is relatively unexplored and inexplicable compared to the rest of the house. He shits himself, right? He's like, oh, holy shit, there's a fucking Minotaur in there. And he realizes that it's a lot bigger, that hallway. You keep going in it. There's a whole fucking labyrinth in there. So what he does, he's like, nah, I can't go in there. And fun fact, his wife is claustrophobic, so kind of the absolute best person to be there because she can get over her fear. I'm just kidding, that poor woman. But he calls up some friends. He calls 2 very famous, semi-famous, pretty famous spelunkers, which, if you know the Nutty Putty Cave incident, they are pretty smart people that we can all rely on. So the main guy's name is Holloway. He has 2 guys go in, and in essence, Holloway loses his mind. Start thinking there's a Minotaur somewhere, and here the book sort of diverges. This is the first time we see the book break. This is the first major, most noticeable quirk. Now, this is a part of a kind of literature called ergodic literature. Ergodic literature? Ergodic? Not erotic. Oh, God damn it. I'm on the school Wi-Fi. Ergodic literature, where you have to navigate the text. The text makes a labyrinth, or a pattern, or an image that your eyes have to go through. It's not just going to give it to you in neat little paragraphs from left to right. So that's the first idiosyncrasy that we see here. Holloway freaks out, holy shit, there's a Minotaur, whips out a gun like a proper American, and shoots a hole in the wall. Now, when that moment happens in the book, the first wall appears. Because it describes that there's a hole in the wall, but there's a wall behind the wall. And you know there's a wall behind the wall because there's a hole in the wall, and the wall will let you see through that wall to the wall behind it. There's even a wall behind that, a wall behind that, and slowly, while in there, the walls begin to shift and change. So they're able to save 2 of the guys. Holloway, I'm pretty sure, just got left down there, and it's because Novitzin, aka Zampano, the main guy, Rest and his friend, go into the labyrinth to get out the 3 guys. Now, during these sorts of subscriptions, prescriptions, descriptions, you get more of this. Again, reflecting the story, reflecting sentiments it's trying to convey, and also reflecting what's going on in the house at the moment. Now, all of this, the Novitzin record is essentially just a description of a film. It's not a real film. So really, the record is just a very long description of a movie that was made from the recordings of Zampano. Now, as the labyrinth The labyrinth that all these people are caught in starts to move and shift, and the walls begin to close into boxes and flatten into each other to disappear and come together to form walls. The text again reflects it, like ants in the snow, like seeds on concrete, only like 3 words per page. Take this moment. Then, just as the strobe captures him lifting the weapon, presumably now aiming at the blinding flash, we hear a series of sharp cracks. The stills reveal what is happening. All those doors behind the man are slamming shut. Another after another. Which still does not prevent the figure from firing. Veiling darkness before this damage, along with even the sound from the blast, disappears behind the roar of more slamming doors. The last one finally hammering shut, leaving the room saturated in silence. Now, to emphasize further that this is a film, they even have part of a fucking screenplay. Not only that, but his wife made a film too. Where was I? Oh yeah. So a bunch of shit happens. The house, out of nowhere, turns into a living labyrinth. Walls begin to close, rooms begin to just shrink into nothing, and Navidson gets eaten by the house. Poor Karen doesn't even get child support. And more importantly, while he's being eaten by the house, which he just gets swallowed up when he's about to make it out, it describes how the house begins to elongate, and his wife has to go in there and bring him out. Some more weird pages. Isn't that shit fucking strange? What the fuck? Still describing the house, by the way. And out of nowhere, we get music. I don't have my recorder. Do I have my recorder? Hold on. Is this the one I've had since elementary? I can't read notes. So, that's the main story, right? This guy gets stuck in there. His wife runs in, Karen. Apparently, scared shitless of small spaces, right? Claustrophobic. She goes in there, she brings him out, and, happy ever after they live. And everything's fine. And he publishes the film, and he makes a shit ton of money, and, happy birthday, that's, Merry Christmas, New Year's, Easter, whatever. Happy ending. So what's the other part? Because I said there were 2 parts to the story. Well, actually, throughout this story, there's a second narrator. He's a guy who inherited this book, House of Leaves. Johnny is a troubled guy. So he works at a tattoo place. His boss hates him. He hates his boss. They're gonna kiss eventually. But he has issues. So his mom was really fucked up at an early age. He got sent to a hospital. He got put in the foster system. He fought a lot with other kids. He got his ass beat by a Marine. And in essence, he gets his hands on this book and he begins to annotate it. This is a whole page of his footnotes. This whole thing, and shit goes on. So you could consider him a dual author to the book, because he does not just make footnotes. So yeah, being a troubled guy, first thing we learn about him is that he's really good at telling stories. He's a fantastic storyteller, a fantastic actor, and a fantastic liar. Those things typically go together. He keeps reading more and more of the book, House of Leaves. He goes on about sex, and there's the Minotaur that's after him, and the color purple is a trigger, but in essence, he goes crazy. Starts to remember things about his mom, starts to see things that aren't there, like the Minotaur. So he tells us in one of his entries that he's reading the very book that we're reading right now, the book he's currently annotating. And the motherfucker's so poor, he has to rip pages out, throw them in a fire, and use that little flame to read the next page. It's little moments like these that inform you that the book House of Leaves and the Navidson record is pretty much bullshit. I mean, if you didn't already gather that from a house that was bigger on the inside than it was on the outside, then what, you think the earth is flat too? It strongly implies that storytelling from Johnny's end. Or maybe some weird metaphysical stuff, I don't know. Then we have another story from Johnny where he's at a bar, there's a rock star group, and he talks to one of the rock stars. And they tell him, oh, we're reading this really cool book, it's been making the rounds, it's really famous, House of Leaves. And supposedly, to Johnny, that's the one he's annotating right now. It hasn't been published. He still has it. And they point out something very specific. I don't remember the page. There's a part where you can only read it by taking the first letter of each word. It spells out a message. I don't remember what it spells. I don't give a shit. The band members know that before Johnny has even published the book. So there's a theme between both narratives of impossibility. The shit twisting on itself in a way it really shouldn't be possible. So it gets near the end. Doesn't have any money. He ends up on a beach. Doesn't have shit to do. And he thinks about his mom. You know, he's been freaking out. The Minotaur's after him. He thinks he's gonna die if he doesn't find the house in the House of Leaves, even though he should know by now that shit is not real. And there's no way it's real. Like, I'm tired. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's 11 at night, and I got school tomorrow. So Johnny's losing his mind this whole time. Thinks the Minotaur's after him. He starts remembering all the trauma happened to him as a kid. He's telling stories, and we don't know which ones are real or not. And he feels like if he doesn't find the house, if he doesn't keep the book, he's gonna die. So it ends with him on a beach. And it ends with him remembering that his mom was never trying to choke him. And this goes back to the letters in the very back of the book that his mom wrote to him, which remember his mom was not very well. Where she, in her own delusion, implies that she tried to choke him. But he looks back at it and he goes, oh no, she was trying to hug me. And then he tells one more story about a little baby who was born brain dead. And the mother sings to him for a very long time, trying to will him into life. But she gives up and the baby stops breathing. I know that Pugzer's video on it. He said he didn't know what it meant. But I think and I was actually surprised because I said, I think it's pretty obvious. Either Johnny dies or it's love in a tragic way because his mom did love him. She was just really sick. And maybe in a way, because a lot of mental illness is either passed down through genetics or through traumatic experiences. So maybe that kind of killed Johnny. I think he gets permission by his mom that he doesn't have to hold on to his body anymore. It is a story that bridges the gap between him and the final part of the book, which I left this out, which contains poems and letters and pictures of everything we just read. And in those letters, a lot of shit starts to make sense. For example, his mom had purple nails. That's why the color purple always freaks him out. He thought his mom tried to choke him because when in his letters, she described that. But then he remembers she was just trying to hug me. She just wasn't okay. We learn about the hospital she was stuck in. We learn about her issues, the issues she could have possibly passed down onto Johnny, the abuse that Johnny dealt with at the hands of his mother, of his father, of the foster care system. Pugzer's way, Pugzer on YouTube, this theory belongs to him. I threw in the part about the final part about the story. But overall, I think has a really, really good point. That Johnny Truant probably wrote House of Leaves. The whole thing about the Minotaur and a house that eats you is him trying to cope and almost in a way hide what happened but not lose its shape about his mom. And those letters imply that very, very strongly. And it's possible that maybe there was something magical. Maybe there was a compass that was leading him somewhere. Or maybe all the issues his mom had, she passed to him and he went crazy and died on a beach. That's one theory. The second theory I'm going to discuss is by May Leitz. Now, May Leitz is a YouTuber, songwriter, author. She wrote the book Fluids, very well known in the disturbing book and horror community. May Leitz, I love you. I love you. I'm one of your biggest fans. Please collab with me. And yeah, she made a pretty good point of what I was describing earlier. That in the way that the book reflects the house and also reflects the plot of what's going on, it implies that the story is the house. The plot is the story, which is also the house in the story, which is also the book, which is also your experience reading the book. That is to say, every little nuance that you look into, you're gonna find another room in the labyrinth. When you look up all these things, we're here, you hit dead ends. You hit empty rooms with no other way out except the way that you came into them. And that's the book. The 5.5-minute hallway, in other words, a narrative that's only meant to be about 700 pages, becomes a quest on the internet. Rabbit holes that, by you trying to find the bottom of, only dig deeper. In her words, not mine, the house is the book. It describes the structure of the book, how readers react to the book, the way your eyes follow it. Maybe she completely overlooked what may have merely been just a fun way to describe the house in a form that leapt off the page. But it's not exactly a bad theory, and it does have a little bit of merit. She didn't talk much about Johnny Truant's section, though maybe that could have been a reflection of the reader's experience specifically. Maybe the Novitzin record is the book, and Johnny is simply the community going crazy, trying to find meaning in every little dot, you know? A bunch of glitter scattered across the sky, and we're the ones trying to make constellations, but maybe we're mistaking discovery with creation. Maybe the stars are just the stars, and we create the figures we see in them. And maybe it's the same thing here. Finally, we go on to my personal theory, and that part actually comes pretty early on. So my theory is that all theories are correct, and because all theories are correct, all theories are wrong. In the words of the book itself, maze treaders, whose vision ahead and behind is severely constricted and fragmented, suffer confusion, whereas maze viewers who see the pattern whole from above or in a diagram are dazzled by its complex artistry. What you see depends on where you stand, and thus, at one and the same time, labyrinths are single and double. They simultaneously incorporate order and disorder, clarity and confusion, unity and multiplicity, artistry and chaos. They may be perceived as a path, or as a path pattern. Our perception of labyrinths is thus intrinsically unstable. Change your perspective and the labyrinth seems to change. There's a reason there's a lot of different rabbit holes. And if there's a million different rabbit holes, who's to say which one is the entrance and which one is the exit? Maybe when he talks about the Minotaur, he argues that the Minotaur actually was just a very disfigured guy who his father stuck him in a maze so no one could see him. The Minotaur is in the middle of a maze. And now Zampano's telling us that it's not even a Minotaur? So what's chasing him? And what's chasing Johnny? Other things, right? For Johnny, it was never truly the Minotaur. It was the pain of his mom, of his dad, and of his past. Zampano, I don't know what else it was, but maybe just the fear of something that was not stable. Like his marriage, his self-worth, or I don't know, a lot of things. The thing that chases and scares the people in this book is implied to not even be what everyone thinks it is. The power of Christ compels you, motherfucker. Power of Christ compels you. Right, I think we're good. There's a million and one ways to look at this book. There's a million and one really weird idiosyncrasies, like house always being in blue, or the word Minotaur always being in red. The words a novel written here are written in purple. Throw in color theory. If the Minotaur represents what we're all running from, and if the house represents the world that's changing and that we don't understand, that how does that connect to the story? I think it's an allegory to our lives. I think it's something to say, the world is confusing and it has nooks and crannies. Every inch of it has a depth to it that you can't even understand and that has no end if you don't stop digging. But at the same time, I think that with that passage about the labyrinth, it's weird and it's unreadable. It has many different points that stick out because there's a million different ways to look at it. You could say, oh, the whole thing is Johnny Truant trying to put things together with his mom. Oh, it's the author created an experience through a book, and then Johnny Truant is just the community going crazy trying to find meaning in everything, trying to find the center of the labyrinth, and also running from the thing that's in the middle of it, which isn't really what we think it is. I think the reason that there are so many blanks left in the narrative and in the weirdness of this book is for us to fill them in. The things that the community comes up with could never compare. The book is strange, so we can come up with many answers, because the sky never stays the same, and you'll see new stars every night, but that won't stop you from making different constellations. And they're all constellations. And in a way that's really beautiful, because the theories I talked about, the theories Mayleeds talked about, the theories Pugser talked about, people on Tumblr, Reddit, Facebook, they're all just as beautiful, and they're all just as different. And they all make as much sense as this book does, which is none at all, and at the same time, once you see it, you see it. Came here looking for an answer, I just gave you a bucket of drunk mouth vomit. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say is that there's many different theories, and my theory is that the reason the book is so weird is because that way we can come up with our own different theories. Come up with your own theory, because I don't think there's such thing as the correct theory. I think there's just a bunch of really good ones. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna fucking fail the speech I have tomorrow. It's supposed to be 8 minutes and the recording time is 58, but wish me luck anyway, and please discuss it, because even if that wasn't the point, only good can come from that.